Hey, welcome to Pete, everyone. I am Ben Flanagan with AL.com, and as you know, fall camp is underway, and the season draws near. Alabama is going to be playing Florida State in an actual football game here in what feels like just a few weeks now, and we have to think about what all is happening currently in Tuscaloosa on the practice field under Kalen DeBoer in year two. He's got Ryan Grubb. Kane Womack is back. The team is shaping up into something that people think is going to be a playoff contender this year. They fell just short last year with 3 losses during the regular season, as you all know. But we think that there are some players on this roster that are making enough noise to indicate that Alabama's got a real shot at not only making the playoff, but maybe doing a little bit more than that. And helping me look at some of those players, a handful of them, in fact, specifying the most important players to help Alabama reach the college football playoff this year is AL.com's Matt Stahl, Alabama football reporter, Alabama everything reporter, golf reporter, severance reporter, everything. Guy whose work got submitted for the record in Congress. I mean, Matt, you've had a big year this year. You've done an amazing work, but now, the rubber's hitting the road at the moment. It's fall camp. Alabama football season is right around the corner. How are you feeling about fall camp right now? And how do you cover fall camp? Like when fall camp finally arrives, what is Matt Stahl thinking?
Well, for one thing, I don't call it fall camp because day one it was 98 degrees outside in Tuscaloosa. I roll with preseason camp until it actually the season rolls over, but that's nitpicking right there. Uh, there's a little bit of like, the fun's over. I can't just go write about Hugh Freeze's golf habits or Nick Saban swearing on ESPN and it leading to federal complaints. Like all that time's kind of gone. But I mean, beyond that, you're just looking for like the little insights. You're only kind of at this point. We watch what, like 15 minutes of a few practices here and there. Like we're not getting the like super deep, I don't think, insights into camp, and we kind of just are waiting on coaches to tell us stuff, really. So it's just looking for the little interesting things is sort of what I'm going for.
I've been to a few of those practices to cover them in the past during the Saban era, 1 or 2 during the DeBoer era, and it's a small window that you get, right? It's usually like in the neighborhood between 10 and 20 minutes. I mean, it varies here and there. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's much shorter, and you really feel like you're in and out regardless because you're trying to scribble down as much information and make as many observations as you can. I mean, is that what you and your colleagues are doing? Do you have your notepad out, and are you just looking every different direction of like who's like personnel, who's in the first team, who's in the second team, who's got a black jersey on? Like, how do you compartmentalize everything? How do you record it all? How do you split the duties with your colleague Nick Kelly as you guys are trying to give people as much information as you possibly can in such a short window?
Yeah, with two of us there, we found it. I think most sort of the most helpful thing I think for readers is we usually will send Nick after one position group in particular. That'll vary day to day what he's going to go watch, and he'll just like laser in on that. Meanwhile, honestly, my first look, because we go in. It it's better than other places I've covered where you mostly just watch players stretch. Like that's not helpful for really anything except Nick Saban hated roll call. But then you show up and you take roll. I'd look around first look. I'm like, all right, is anybody in a black jersey for the non-contact besides the quarterbacks? That's step one. I take a look at the exercise bikes, see if anybody's overriding them. Look around, like, is anybody not in uniform that should be in uniform? But yeah, beyond that, it's just like, okay, who's with the first group of offensive linemen? Now we're not seeing any 11 on 11 football or anything like that, right? But you can sort of glean a little bit off of who's going first in drills. Obviously, this camp there's a quarterback battle, so you're looking like, all right, Ty's going first in this drill. Max next, and Keelan Russell goes. Then various walk-ons behind them. So doing stuff like that, and yeah, it's about 15 minutes, so you really are sort of limited in the scope of what you can get, but like you can get a little bit, and you can read that little bit on AL.com.
Do you think the curtain is really pulled back, like, or is it all smoke and mirrors? There's this Netflix documentary about WWE right now where they're like letting fans really look behind the curtain at like how the business of pro wrestling really works. But there are suspicious people out there, conspiracy theorists, who think even that's fake, right? Do you think like during that allotted window, like you're really seeing like practice, or do you think it's just like, look, the media is watching us right now. We gotta go through the motions here, or do you think they
There's
have time to do that?
I don't know if they have time to like really be faking drills or anything like that's not happening. But yeah, I mean it's just designed so like we see some periods that are, I mean it's just individual and group drills really. Like we're not seeing anything that would be of use. And this has also been my like stance on practice, like practice for years is, I mean as a beat writer you kind of have to be there, but like if you're really thinking for journalism you're like okay I could use that um 20 minutes, really an hour that I'm going to spend standing outside the practice and then 20 minutes walking into it, like I could spend that time filing FOIA requests and probably like do more like intensive like journalism uh, and truly, I think if you ask Kalen DeBoer if he's as he's walking off the practice field, like just in general, how was practice today? Like his honest to God answer would have to be like, I have to check the tape. Like there's so many things that like even the coaches can't tell you just immediately off of watching like the first blush practice impressions. So, it's useful and it's not, but I don't know. It is what it is. I'm still gonna keep going to the practice access.
Well, and there's also a quarterback battle that's happening right now. We obviously all think that Ty Simpson is going to be the starter when Florida State kicks off, and that's probably what will happen, right? But I mean, the interesting thing about the Kalen DeBoer era is where the head coach is at practice. Obviously, with Nick Saban, he was always with the DBs, working with the defense primarily. The opposite is true under Kalen DeBoer. He's typically working with the quarterbacks, which is much different since you've been going to these practices so far during fall camp. Has that been the case? Has he been on top of Simpson, Mack, and Russell and coaching them up so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he'll float around a little bit. Like you'll see him sort of drift over the running backs, check in on the tight ends. But yeah, for the most part, he's over there. Ryan Grubb's over there. Nick Sheridan. Well, Nick Sheridan's the position coach, obviously, so he's definitely there. But like those three are all sort of centered around the QBs, and I mean, so much other stuff like centers around the quarterbacks in practice, right? Like the tight ends will go over there, the wide receivers will go over there, and run routes and catch balls from the quarterbacks. The running backs will come over and do handoff drills. So it's not like Kalen DeBoer's just like abandoning the rest of the team by standing over there with the quarterbacks. But yeah, that's where he's been spending most of his time.
Last thing about fall camp here, just some of the details that you've reported so far. We know since last season, and now he's doing it again this season, Kalen DeBoer lets them play music at practice. And this is pretty typical for a lot of football teams, especially in the NFL. Like if you've watched Hard Knocks or seen footage of teams practicing, you hear music. You hear players complaining about the playlist sometimes, joking about it, say, I got the aux cable this week or whatever. But you reported they're playing things like AC/DC, Paramore. I mean, it seems like a pretty eclectic playlist so far. What else have you noticed about what they're listening to? What is the soundtrack to Alabama getting better and becoming a playoff team, Matt?
Yeah, and boy, that's a real Alabama thing to be like shocked by music playing at practice, right? Like that's been just nationwide forever, other than Nick Saban, I guess a few other like
Well, when
really
you hear
old.
the same 10 songs in Bryant Denny Stadium during games for the past 20 years, it's kind of interesting when somebody changes it up a little bit.
That's true. But yeah, you're right. There's been Paramore, there's been some AC/DC. It seems like they sort of there's a lot of classic rock will hit the playlist at the time. Like heard some Guns N' Roses in there, that sort of thing. Paramore was new. I hadn't heard the Paramore getting played in there. Shout out to Nashville's finest there. Uh, there's a lot of rap too. There's some, Gunna will be on there from a lot of Drake. Still rocking with some Kanye West on there.
Okay.
Uh,
Interesting.
yeah, we'll
Yeah.
see.
Well,
See if that makes it to the actual Bryant Day Stadium playlist. I have my doubts, but yeah, a lot of stuff like that. I'll probably towards the end of camp, I'll pull together a Spotify playlist of some sort and run a little
excellent.
story on it.
But no ice cream trucks, right?
Not yet. Uh, boy, people lost their minds over that thing last year. But boy, yeah, I have no insights as to whether there will be an ice cream truck.
Well,
back at practice this year.
since you're complaining about the temperature during fall camp, I doubt you would mind an ice cream truck
Dog, I
if
would
it was out
love
there.
some. I would love some ice cream during practice. Like if they
All
wanted
right.
to
Well,
hand
what,
out media ice cream, I'd be all in.
what's your go-to from an ice cream truck stall?
Oh,
Do
from
you
the
go popsicle
truck,
or do you go ice cream? Do you go dairy?
I like that little that strawberry shortcake bar
Oh
that
wow.
even so, I love those, and the chocolate version's good too. Used to be the Choco Taco, but I think they discontinued that uh, a few years ago.
Never
But
had a
yeah, I mean,
Choco Taco. Never had
uh,
one. I'm missing out.
it's up there. It's up there on the pantheon of ice cream truck treats. But yeah, strawberry shortcake's always kind of been my go-to.
Okay, well, we'll tell Kalen DeBoer. Matt, let's get into the topic this week. It's the 5 players on the Alabama roster, especially from what you've seen, heard from fall camp, that are going to help Alabama make the playoff in 2025. And we're going to take 2 offensive players, 2 defensive players, but we're going to start with special teams this year because obviously James Burnip left. Alabama experimented a little at the place kicking position last year after Will Reichert had left after a storied career. Alabama doesn't really know what it has, or fans, I should say, don't really know what Alabama has when it comes to return specialists. We saw a variety last year, especially with some injuries at the position. So let's start with special teams, Matt. Like, who is a guy on special teams, whether it's in kickoff coverage, whether they're actually kicking the ball, whether they're going to be, fielding the ball, who's going to make a difference this year when Alabama's on special teams?
So I think my official answer I'm going to put in is Connor Talty, who he sat behind Will Reichert, he sat behind Graham Nichols. He handled kickoffs last year, but he's got a big leg, and I think he's probably going to be the one to take over that kicking job. Like it's a weird deal. Like Alabama better hope they're not back to like the era of the meme Alabama kicker, and like Will Reichert did so much to just change the perception of that position. Before him, it was tough sledding. Like Nick Saban could recruit every single position, but not that. So yeah, Talty, I think they'll need him to be good. Graham Nicholson, I mean, the issue with Nicholson last year was they never really they didn't attempt that many field goals, and like his first one of the season was really long. Like it was like a 50-yarder that he missed, and he was out of sync. It was a like I don't know that it was quite what he was looking for last season to be. But beyond that, on the punt team, I'm not going to say the punter. Robbie Utes has been the personal protector for the punter for years, like pretty much his whole time in Tuscaloosa. He was kind of the starter there. So they got to find somebody new there. Could be one of the tight ends. Was talking to Jay Nunez today about that. He mentioned Jay Lindsey as a name who could pop in there. So I think, especially with a new punter back there, you got to replace James Burnip, who was so good for so long. I think that's going to be maybe the unsung hero of the special teams unit.
Well, I wonder though, let me follow up here. So Connor Talty's an interesting answer because obviously you're right. You got to have a kicking game, even though it worked out for Nick Saban. I mean, he may not have had the best kickers during his run, but he was still winning national championships in spite of it. So it seems like once he got the good kickers, that's when he started winning fewer national championships, even though Will Reichert won one. But return specialists, because we saw Ryan Williams field some punts last year, and I think anytime he did, Alabama fans held their breath because of how important he was to the offense, and they didn't want to see him get injured. But he was obviously really skilled at it, and he could make things happen. He can make plays no matter where he is on the field and no matter what unit is out there. But do you think we'll see Ryan Williams back out there? I mean, Kendrick Law was a kick returner last year, and he's obviously gone to Kentucky. Who's going to be returning kicks for Alabama?
Maybe. I mean, it's a good question. I feel like you'd be more likely to see Jalen Mabakwe back there than Ryan Williams at this point. I mean, there's always a case for getting Ryan Williams the ball, but unless it's like a dire situation, like I don't know that I would have the stomach to have him out there on punt or kickoff returns. Cole Adams is back this year. Like he had some well, he missed the end of the season with an injury, and he had one kind of mid-season that they thought that initially looked worse than it was. But he seemed to be like the guy who could get a real spark going in the return game. So I wonder if he sort of just steps into more of that, and hopefully for Alabama, he stays healthy.
All right, that's special teams. Let's move on to defense now, Matt. Who's your first pick? We're picking 2 here first pick on the defensive side of the ball, a guy who's really going to be impactful when it comes to Alabama making the playoff this year?
LT Overton. I think he's going to come off of that bandit position, which is a defensive end that they decided to call a bandit starting last season under Kane Wommack. Uh, he was really good in the pass rush last season, other than the part where he could not get quarterbacks on the ground. It seemed like it seemed like three
Important
times
part.
it
Yeah.
seemed like three times the game. It's like, all right, LT Overton's got both hands on the quarterback, and then he just wouldn't wind up getting him onto the ground. So I know for a fact he's been working really hard on that. Uh, he's been, yeah, that's probably my big one. It's gonna be him because I don't know if he can get those guys on the ground. Like, I mean, that's a fierce pass rusher, and it sort of can make up for you lost. You know, your Q Robinson's gone. Jahad Campbell was a big part of that pass rush, so he could sort of make up for some of those losses.
Matt, let's digress for just a minute here. Take us through these names of the defensive positions this year, because we knew with Nick Saban and Kirby Smart and the defensive coaches throughout the years, you'd have Mike and Sam, and you'd have some of these other Star and some of these other names for certain positions. But then it all changed when Kane Womack and Kalen DeBoer came in, and you've already mentioned Bandit. We've heard the term Wolf. What are some of the other kind of like funny code names
All
for
right,
the positions
yeah.
we heard?
So they're pretty easy, and a lot of times in stories, I just call them what they are. Bandit, defensive end, just a defensive end. The basic, the one you used to know, right? Like hand in the dirt, defensive end.
Okay.
Wolf, edge. It's just
Okay.
it's just an edge. Is what it is. The Husky, it's a little different. Sort of a kind of it's mostly a nickelback, uh, but maybe one that sort of more of a. It's the one that'll move up kind of more towards the linebackers than the other safety. Obviously, plays a lot of coverage. That's the hardest one to explain, but mostly just a fifth defensive back that maybe plays up a little bit more and can do some linebackery
Hmm.
things at times. Yeah, I'm thinking, yeah, that's probably the best way to describe that one. The other two are a lot simpler.
Okay. Bandit. Well, it sounds like Wolf sounds like a Roald Dahl characters playing football for Kane Womack this year. Okay, let's go to your second defensive pick, Matt. Who is it?
Domani Jackson. I don't think that's really a hot take. I'm trying to come up with some that aren't like, okay, yeah, Deontay Lawson. Yes, the middle linebacker will
Right.
be important here, but
But Damani Jackson was
Demont.
an important player last year who made some big plays. You think he'll take another step this year? Is what you mean?
Yeah, I do. He's got another year in this kind of defensive system. That was a big change for the defensive backs. I mean, obviously he wasn't around for a lot of and he's very briefly around when Nick Saban was, but he transferred in from USC, uh, the Southern Cal USC, not the South Carolina USC. But yeah, I think he's going to be a difference maker at defensive end this season. Or defensive end, good grief, got me cornerback. He seems like he could really be one of those lockdown guys who sort of shuts down a whole side of the field. But they're talented elsewhere in the defensive backfield enough to the point where I think he's going to get some chances to like really, really make an impact, not rack up some interceptions. So I think I think he'll be a name you'll see if Alabama is going to be as good as it could be this season.
Yeah, and again, just as like a follow up at defensive back, a lot of people seem to think that this is a really strong unit for Alabama this year. Do you consider? We hear about the wide receivers, we hear about the offensive line, a lot of depth at both of those positions, or at least a lot of strengths at those positions. Do you think defensive backfield is an area where Alabama could be elite nationally?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, you got to go out and execute it. But I mean, Keon Sabb's back after that injury. You got Bray Hubbard, who's a year older and was really, really good when he played last season. Like, I think he's the truth. He could be just awesome this year for them. Xavier Brown's a year older. Some of those other, like, Red Morgan's a year older as kind of a depth piece. Like, they're really good, and I think they're going to be really deep. You had Cam Calhoun from Utah. Seemed like he could maybe slide over from being more of an outside corner to into that Husky role, maybe. So yeah, like it's a good room. It's a deep room. If they're not really good, it would be disappointing, I think.
I've already forgotten what husky means on the defensive side of the ball, and you just explained all the terms to us. So, but that's okay. We need to move on now so I don't get confused any more than I already am, Matt. So we've heard defensively LT Overton and Damani Jackson, Connor Talty with special teams. It's time for offense now. And as I understand it, Matt, we're not going to be talking quarterbacks necessarily here, right? Because everybody knows that Ty Simpson, who's the presumed QB1 in 2025, he's obviously an important cog in what Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb and Nick Sheridan are trying to do with the offense in year two, but we're looking elsewhere. So who's your first pick on offense?
Walk-on quarterback Cade Caruth. I'm kidding. No,
You
yeah,
had me.
the same same deal. I'm trying to stay away from like the really really obvious ones here, but Isaiah Horton, the Miami transfer at wide receiver. Last year Ryan Williams got off to just unbelievably hot start. Of course, had the catch against Georgia, like just making play. I mean, it felt like it was 3 weeks before he caught a pass that wasn't a touchdown. Uh, he was just making all sorts of those plays. So he's but I guess the point I'm going to make here is towards the end of the season, that wasn't necessarily the case, right? Like I think defenses maybe caught on to him a little bit. They were able to maybe just key in on him more in their coverages. And you saw Jeremy Bernard step up as well. Like I think Jeremy wound up leading the team in catches last season. But this year, Horton comes in as like that third wide receiver. I think he'll offer just more of a threat than any of the other wideouts did last year. I think Jeremy's still going to get his. I think Ryan will still get his. But Horton's one of those guys. He's a little taller than the rest of them. Provides a little different type of threat over the top. So I think he's going to demand some of the coverage and maybe just open things up a little bit more for some of those other guys.
Yeah, it's a really exciting prospect. You know, the last time Alabama had a big Miami transfer, it was Mark Gillen under Mike Shula, and he played quarterback, and it didn't exactly work out, but times have changed, Matt, you could say. And Isaiah Horton certainly has the physical attributes. And when you hear that Kalen DeBoer has a new weapon to work with at wide receiver, considering all he's done with the position thus far in his college coaching career, especially at this level in power conference coaching, it seems like Horton has a big opportunity here. And it obviously depends on how things go at quarterback and if Ty Simpson can get him the ball, right? But you have another offensive pick. This is our last pick here as we're talking about the Alabama offense. Who's another guy who's going to help Alabama put them over the top this year?
Wilkin Formby. Put me down for Wilkin Formby. Uh, I think, he started out last year as a starter at right tackle, struggled a lot early on, lost the job to Elijah Pritchett, who's now off to the transfer portal. You saw Wilkin get some action toward the end of the season and like looked much improved. He was dealing with a wrist injury for a lot of the year. I think that's sort of been worked out. They need him at right tackle. I mean, yeah, you got a like decently experienced offensive line, right? Like Kaden Proctor's back, Parker Brailsford's back, Jaden Roberts back at right guard. You just sort of got to find the right guy at left guard, and then Wilkins pretty well entrenched at that right tackle spot. So you need him to be good, and you could have. I mean, he was talking about at the media day today, like they think winning the Joe Moore Award for the nation's top offensive line is a like possibility for them. Like that's an achievable goal, they think. But if they're going to do that, like he needs to be really, really good.
Yeah, certainly. And Wilkin Formby is a name that a lot of people in Tuscaloosa certainly know as a local kid. I believe he played at Northridge High School here in town, if I'm not mistaken. He is a large man, large human being. I remember being in Baumhauer's for the first Kalen DeBoer edition of the weekly head coach radio show, and I think Wilkin Formby was among the players that Kalen DeBoer brought in for an interview, and I was just like, wow, this dude's massive. But that's usually the case with offensive tackles. But he became, a household name of sorts for Alabama fans during the South Florida game last year when Alabama was they played him and he had meaningful snaps and he struggled at times, but that was because he was inexperienced and he had to get in there and earn his stripes at the position. And Alabama ultimately broke through in the ground game, especially when I believe it was Justice Haynes or Jam Miller, or maybe both of them had long runs in that game. And that game was closer than I think a lot of people remember, and certainly closer than the final score would indicate. But they were able to get things going on the ground. And that's certainly what Alabama fans would like to see more of this season, especially when you have a quarterback that won't be as dependent on rushing Alabama won't be as dependent on their quarterback rushing the ball as they were with Jalen Milroe. And Wil Forby is going to have to play a pretty decent part in getting that running game going, especially at the offensive line position. Do you think that he's somebody who could specialize in running, like helping to run the ball in Alabama's running attack, or do you think he's more of a pass pro specialist?
I couldn't tell you one way or the other on him. I think that's going to be sort of a wait and see thing. I mean, in Kalen DeBoer's offense, I think you're going to need to be a pass pro guy, right? Like they're throwing that ball a lot, even on the short yardage plays. Sometimes they'll throw the ball just to go get a high percentage look. So I think that's sort of going to need to be how it is. But yeah, I mean, offensive line is sort of the spot where just development is probably the most crucial compared to any other. And by development, I mean just physically, right? Like you come in, you could be the biggest, baddest player at your high school, and then you come in and you got to block like whoever the next Will Anderson is, and like that's not going to go so well for you when you're 18 years old. You could be incredible you could be the best recruit ever, and it's still not going to go that well. Like a lot of these offensive linemen take some time to like really come of age. I think you saw it. I mean, Kaden Proctor struggled a lot his freshman season, right? And then some of last year too, but you see him just maturing, getting better, doing all that. So I think Will can sort of be in the same boat. And you're right. I mean, he's impressive physically. He's one of those guys who he stands up next year and you're just kind of like staring straight up in the air at him. Just yeah, if I had to predict, I think he's in for a good year.
6'7", 324 pounds there over on the right side of the line. When then you've got Kaden Proctor, 6'7", and what I've heard is he's down to 360 something pounds. So large men on the offensive line, that's what you want, obviously, but you want them to play athletically, you want them to play fast, and obviously very strong. And we've heard that a lot of guys on the offensive line are super strong, including Jaden Roberts, who everybody on the team insists is the strongest guy on the team there at guard. So Matt, that's 5 guys that are going to make a big impact in 2025. Connor Talty, Damani Jackson, LT Overton, Wil Forby, and Miami transfer Isaiah Horton, who just missed the cut here at in any of the position groups. Who did you not want to leave off, but you had to?
Ooh, I mean, just the other cornerbacks, Avian Brown is way out there. Same with Bray Hubbard. Offensively, Gino Vandemark. I don't know that he'll be the starting left guard, but I do know he'll be playing a fair amount just across the interior offensive line. And I mean, you can't really leave Ryan Williams that far off your list, right?
Well, give me one guy, because Ryan Williams, he was that guy before he even played down, before he even recommitted to Alabama and ultimately came and played his freshman year here. But give me one more name, and it doesn't have to be somebody you've already named, who's going to be a household name in Tuscaloosa and perhaps even the nation by October, let's say.
Ooh, how about give me Josh Quavvis at tight end? I think he's getting healthier and healthier. It might still be a sort of a slow start. Start of the season, he's just coming off an injury that he missed a lot. I mean, all the tight ends were missing spring. Everybody was hurt. But I mean, I think just becoming a household name, being a tight end is a great way to do it. I got my friend Nick Suss, who covers the Tennessee Titans for the Tennessean, has a joke that the tight end is always the most popular person in town, and the offensive coordinator is always the least popular person in town because he won't throw the ball to the tight end enough. So I think Josh Quavvis offers a threat in the passing game that maybe they didn't necessarily have as much last year with C.J. Dupree and Robbie Oots. So I think you'll be hearing a lot from him.
This is all great stuff, and you're an expert in your field, and you've gone up and down the roster. I'm just curious, when is depth chart day, Matt? Like, is Alabama doing that? We know that Nick Saban year after year just got crankier and crankier when he understood that the demand for the depth chart was really high among you guys in particular, the beat reporters out there. But when is Kalen DeBoer going to give us that bad boy?
I don't know. I haven't asked. They didn't do it last year up until we went in there for the first game, and they still managed to leave one of the cornerback positions off the depth chart. But that's neither here nor there. So it might just be we're running in there for the first game to see like what the place card at your press box seat is. But if they wanted to give us one before that, I'd appreciate it. If somebody in the building wants to just send it to me, install at AL.com. My DMs are open on all the social medias. I'm eminently reachable if anyone wants to slide one my way.
You've heard it here first. And earlier you said you can't focus on things like Hugh Freeze playing golf, but honestly, I think that Alabama fans would appreciate it if you did. Matt Stahl, he is Matt Stahl. You can read all of his stuff on AL.com. Outstanding Alabama football writer. You got to be following him this season. Him and Nick Kelly, actually, they make an awesome team, and they're going to give you everything you could possibly want when it comes to Alabama football. And they're doing it right now. So go find Matt Stahl on AL.com. Matt, thanks for doing this, man.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, Beat Everyone is available wherever you get your podcasts, on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Go check us out. Go rate us, subscribe, leave us a review. We'd always appreciate it. And catch us on the next episode when we go through number 2, the game number 2 on our list of the 15 best games of the 21st century for Alabama football. You won't be disappointed in this one, everybody. Until next time, I've been Flanagan with AL.com. We'll see you then.